So you've been traveling a lot. You've been traveling a lot lately, and that's great with new books. But remind us where home is.
Home is just out of Melbourne in Australia.
That's why you have an awesome accent. Yep, yep. Okay. That's my dream place to visit someday from the US. It's not too bad of a flight, but I want to see the koalas and the dingoes and the kangaroos and maybe be brave enough to scuba dive the Great Barrier Reef. So I have a lot of dreams for Australia. Just needs to
Got to do it.
happen.
That's lovely out there, and a lot of those things. Like even I've never scuba dived in the Great Barrier Reef, so there's stuff that a lot of Australians don't do that we just take it for granted a bit.
Right. Yeah. And you said Melbourne, right? Just outside Melbourne?
Yep, so that's down the bottom.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, because I mean it's huge. Because then I have different. Well, I want to go to the Sydney Opera House too. I mean, it's all over, right? I can't. It's not the United States. It's not quite. Yeah, it'd be a lot, but
Yeah.
have to.
And it varies so much. Like we're up near the Great Barrier Reef, it's tropical rainforest, and then there's desert in the middle, and then there's beaches. So yeah, it's got a bit of everything, which is really cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It makes me nostalgic. I just had a friend go 2 weeks ago, and just her videos with the koalas. I was like, I'm sold. I need to go.
Yeah, you got to do it.
It's beautiful there, though. Beautiful country, from what I've seen.
Yeah, and it's not too far. Whereabouts are you based?
I am in Utah in the United States, and we have had a very, very rough winter and a very rainy, somewhat chilly summer. So right now I'm frustrated. We like being outside. We live outside, but right now it has been a little bit frustrating. Yeah, the weather's. We had a drought last year, so at least we're not in danger of that now. But it's
the opposite.
Quite the opposite. Yes, yes. And we actually even had a flood in our basement a couple weeks ago. Just the water levels have risen so much here. But we've just spent a lot of time outside now that our basement is out of commission.
Perfect.
Pushes us outside.
Yeah, but just don't go to Australia now because it's our winter at the. Well, I mean, Queensland, the Great Barrier Reef's nice now, but it's our winter. So down in Melbourne, I left it was like 5 degrees, and which I think is about like 40 degrees by your temperature.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that's so cold.
It was cold.
Yeah. Yeah, see, even 15 degrees is cold to me. I'm a wimp. We lived in Arizona before this, and that's just desert. So
yeah.
Yes, I've my blood thinned out quite a bit, so I like the warm weather. But there would be so much fun. I just have to plan my trip right so that I get the right weather and the right everything in Australia. But
absolutely, just follow the sun.
There you go. I love that. Okay, well, this is seriously such an honor for me. Welcome to For the Love of Literacy.
Thank you.
I know you're traveling, so when I say how are you, you can answer honestly if you're exhausted, excited, running on fumes.
No, I'm good. I'm good at the. I reckon it's going to be adrenaline for the week, and then when I get home, I reckon I'll be on the floor for about 5 days just recovering. I think, but that's good. I'm happy to do that. So yeah, it's fun. Then I'm off to Bali in end of July. So
wow, that is so awesome. So you travel quite a bit, but like you said, you got to take the time to recover. So have you done this kind of traveling before with your series, or is this all new with this book?
Yeah, this is the first one. So I do a lot of schools back in Australia, and so that's where I do a lot of my touring. I guess is doing school visits and launching the books there. So this is my first big international tour and carrying on. So yeah, it's awesome. Which is another reason I'm just going to be on adrenaline the whole time because it's so much fun.
That and caffeine.
Do you know, I've never had a coffee in my life, so I don't even do caffeine. Yeah, I don't like the smell of it, so I can't.
I don't either, actually. I'm more of a Dr. Pepper drinker. That's my caffeine or perk. But yes, part of that comes with just being a mom of young kids too. But I would imagine on the tour you're on right now, you would need that energy, just keeping busy. So mainly, you were just talking about how you're getting ready to go to another library. Mainly, what have you done so far on this tour, on the book tour?
So it's kind of just started. So I just started yesterday. So I flew in the evening a couple of days ago, and did a bookstore in Pleasanton, in California, just out of San Francisco, and then the library in Dublin yesterday. Then flew into Denver this morning at 2 a.m. and then just do it at the Columbine Library now. Then off to the Tattered Cover bookstore tonight.
Oh, that's awesome. Because and I love book signings at bookstores. Like I love school visits. I've only written one book and I'm very slow going, but I love the school visits. And I have done a couple library like story times. Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you've been doing? Or yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So you're doing this, reading the new book and doing some drawing with the kids and getting them up and jumping around and being crazy, which I like. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually, so when we got this in the mail, the Very Dinosaur Birthday, my son is an avid dinosaur lover, and we'll talk about that more here in a minute. But
Yeah.
um, he was just ecstatic because I mean, the last 2 years we've done dinosaur themed birthday parties.
Oh,
So
amazing.
this is just more ideas for him.
Yeah, it's like
But
written for him.
he's like, yeah, I do want to have dinosaurs at my birthday. And you're like, yeah, you don't, but we have
Yeah.
all the fun books, right? Because as he goes through these phases, we just get collections of books.
Yeah.
Well, what was fun is so we've read this almost every night since it came in the mail because, and he likes all the dinosaurs, but he used to love T-Rex the most.
Yep.
And then he grew to love Therizinosaurus recently.
Whoa.
I didn't even say it right. Therazine. Nope. Anyway, I've been to a few museums. I still can't say it.
Yeah.
Well, we saw that you'd made a few Instagram videos of like getting up and moving around. And so I showed him that, with trying to give the T-Rex the present. And man, he got a kick out of that. Oh my God. So he's 6 and he wants to be a paleontologist when he grows up, but he was just having a blast with this.
Yeah.
My sister was in town. Her kids love dinos. So we've just been like sharing the goodness here.
It's awesome.
It's so fun. But like, let me ask you, because I've toyed around with creating a dinosaur themed book for my son's sake, especially.
Yeah.
Mostly actually to do with food, like dinos eating human food kind of thing.
Love it.
But when you got the idea for this, how did it go from like, the birth of the idea to the actual layout of the book?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I got the idea. I actually wrote this back in 2020, and my mum had broken her back. Yeah, she had a bit of an accident. She broke it. She was 79 at the time, and she ran her own Pilates studio and was doing like 20 classes a week. And because it was lockdown, she was going to do a virtual class, and she was moving a reformer bed, which is like 60 kilos, and she weighs about 40. So yeah, and it fell on her and broke her back. So I was down living with her and looking after her, and yeah, she wouldn't wake up too late, and I wake up really early. So yeah, I was just writing each morning and sort of had done the How to Catch books and was thinking, I love writing about those sort of historical and mythical and mysterious creatures and everything. And so yeah, the dinosaur, it was just the idea of what's a good setting to put them in. And yeah, the birthday came up, and then I went a bit crazy. So I started writing about dinosaurs at Christmas and Easter and Mother's Day and Halloween, and then unicorns and all these things. So yes, I just wrote every day. So it was awesome. So you did it then, and then so that was 2020, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I reckon it was at the start of 2022 that I did the deal with Tommy Nelson, who are the awesome publishers, and then we got Christopher Nielsen on to do the illustrations. And yeah, then it was sort of it was a few months of him illustrating, and yes, it's been 3 years from the idea to it coming out, which is kind of not normal, but it can often take a couple of years for a kid's book to come out.
No, for sure. Because I was going to say this was 2 years. Yeah. And I actually sought out my illustrator. And then like, I kind of like that though, that dynamic, right? Like where you have to trust another creative human being with your idea, because it is a little bit of a trust thing. And especially with children's books, like you want the artwork to match your idea, right? When you're writing it, you want that conveyed. So it's a little tricky. And I love these end papers. Oh, that's so creative. I love that.
Yeah.
That was my biggest regret with my book, was that we didn't end up doing the end papers because it was going to be X amount more.
Right.
And then I was like, how much do I want? So it's a little girl that's in her pajamas all day.
Yeah, love it.
Got like a little unicorn buddy. So I wanted like unicorns and rainbows, which is another reason we love your How to Catch. My daughter loves unicorns. So it's nice, right, that we can have all these books that you've written, and they're just so much fun. And each time a new one has come out, we've either checked it out or added it to our home library.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the seasonal ones are great too. You know, the Easter Bunny is a favorite.
Yep.
That one comes out a lot. And then we've done the Elf and we've done the Christmassy stuff. But this one, I think this is our first one that we got
Okay.
in the
Yep.
series. And it
Yeah.
has remained a favorite. In fact, there's several taped pages because it's gone on road trips, on airplanes, you know,
Yeah.
everywhere, right? So anyway, you have these awesome books and so many ideas, it seems like. But like you said, it can be hard when you have that process of like, I want to get this book out, but it's going to take 2 to 3 years. Kind of
Yeah.
like a little bit of almost a setback for me anyway, because I'm like, should I just crank it out now or should I kind of gradually do it? So, and it is nice when you have publicists and you have like a publishing company supporting you. So, what would you say maybe to aspiring writers or novice writers that are like, I want to get published? Where do I start?
Oh, just a little question.
And I
Uh,
know, super loaded. Take as much
yeah.
time as you need.
No, that's great. Look, I mean, I think, but the advice given to me when I started from a couple of authors down in Australia, Andy Griffiths and Michael Salmon, who are two of the big authors down here, and Andy said, get your work as good as you can get it. Like just work on your writing, get your writing as good as you can, and then things will start to take care of themselves. You will, if you're submitting, you will get seen, and so just keep working on your writing. And then I'd also self-published a bit, so I self-published quite a few books before I got picked up by publishers. It took me about 8 years to get picked up by a publisher.
Oh,
So
wow.
yes, I
Yeah.
self-published. So the advice Michael gave me, Michael Salmon, was get the schools on side.
Mm,
Get out, do the school visits. You're
yeah.
meeting your audience. You're seeing, potentially 500, 1,000 kids in one go. Get
Right.
them on side, and that's going to be the starting point. So they were the big things. I just wrote like every day. I mean, I worked out recently. I've written over 3,000 stories in my time just because I write every day. And yeah, doing that and then taking my self-published books out to school and testing the work on the kids as well. So they're the ones who are listening to it. They're the ones who are going to tell their friends about it. So yeah, testing your work on kids, I think, is really, really important, because stuff that we think is going to be great, sometimes they just kind of look at you like, nah, not so
Right.
much. So yeah, so that was probably the three big things that I did was yeah, the schools, testing it on the kids, and just writing. And I also did the Artist's Way a couple of times. I don't know if you know the Artist's Way by
Mm-hmm.
Julia Cameron. So yeah, so I went through that a couple of times, and that really sort of unlocked my, I guess, ideas and imagination, and really helped. So yeah, and then I think the other big thing in terms of looking to get published is kind of getting among the community. Like I used to go to book launches, I'd go to talks, and I would just talk to people and not talk about my books, not say, I've got a book, can you read it? But just kind of meet them and get to know them. And I'd go to conferences and
Mm-hmm.
chat to them. I volunteered at a couple of conferences, which meant I then got to go to the publisher after party and just got to chat to the
Right.
publishers there. And straight away, almost all of them said, if you've got anything, send it in. So straight away you're jumping past
Right.
the. So those things were really, really helpful in just getting my work out there, which is the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I like, but that is like such a good tip because, so I'm lucky because I'm a mom, but I also have, I think, 12 nieces and nephews now. And so
Oh, wow.
when we get together and I'm working on a manuscript, you're right. I test it out on them. And if they're kind of
Yep.
like, meh, then I'm like, oh, that wasn't such a good idea. Or maybe I worded that weird. Or if they're left with any doubt or question about something, I'm like, okay, my writing wasn't very clear. Because that's before I even get, any illustrations, worked up for it. So if
Yep.
I'm reading it to them and they're painting the picture and then they're like, well, I don't get this, or why did that happen? Then I'm like, okay, feedback
Perfect.
noted,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
okay, I'm going to go back and fix this. That is such a genius thing to do,
Absolutely.
but that's your audience, right? So,
Absolutely. And they'll be honest. Like even if it's family, like I tested on my niece as well, and she could be brutal. Like they'll let you know if they don't like it, which is great. But it's
yeah,
like, oh, really?
no, that's very true. And they're your best critics though, because I feel like kids, they're not trying to hide the truth. And so
No,
that like when they're saying something, it's genuine. So yeah, you can take that and run with it. And the
exactly.
community, like you said, getting into the schools, going to the libraries. Because even though like ideally our as we write books for children, we want children to read them, there
Yep.
are adults reading our book to the kids as well. And so we want
Exactly.
that appeal, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
So
to
it's
kind
a
of hit
lot to
both.
think about.
Yeah, which is tricky because you want to write this really kind of kid-focused book, but yeah, it is often going to be adults reading it to them, parents, teachers, grandparents. So, and you want to put a bit in for them as well, so that you make sure they enjoy it. Because I know a few friends of mine as parents who are like, if I have to read one more fairy book, I'll go insane.
Right. Because when your kid gets on a kick, like I said, so it was for my son before it was dinosaurs, it was space. And I
Right.
would say we easily have about 20 to 30 picture books about space of
Yeah.
our own, not even from the library. So it's
Wow.
awesome. But yeah, like when yeah, there are times when you're like, hey, we have checked out all the books. We have read or cut or bought all the books. Let's,
Yeah.
yeah, find a new topic. So that's kind of tricky too when you wrote the how-to series, which tell us a little bit about when you started that, because I know that that was a while ago. And then
Yep.
kind of like, do you feel like writing a series, so looking back, is like a little bit better way to approach things when you can make it a series? I can't really make this into a series, but like it's a standalone book in its own
Yep.
right. But when you can make a series, do you feel like that's a better option for the kids, for you selling books?
Yeah, I think so. And when I started, I was the same. I would do standalone picture books, even the self-published ones. They're all kind of standalone ones, and
Mm-hmm.
which I love doing. But yeah, I noticed that again. I don't know if it's the same in the States, but in Australia, a lot of the books that were doing really well were series, whether they were chapter books or picture books. That was the real focus of, because
Yeah.
then you get that shelf space as well. And so in terms of selling, it's good. And so the How to Catch was actually the publisher's concept. So it was someone I'd worked with in Australia, had moved back to America and was working with source books. And yeah, so she came to me and said, we've got this idea, this sort of concept for how to catch a leprechaun. Would you be interested in writing it? I'm like, yeah. And so
Oh
yes,
yeah.
that was one where they gave me sort of the idea in the brief and said we want it to go through all these traps and they get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, then I just had to come up with the traps and work out the format and the rhyming and everything and go from there. So it was really fun. And then that one came out, and I'm trying to remember, that was about 2016, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the I'm going to say the Tooth Fairy or the Elf came out next. I think it was after the first one had come out and started.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they planned a series initially or if they just, the first one did well and that was when they decided. I have no idea. But yeah, so I think, and kids, I think kids look for that series sometimes. Like you said, they look for
Right.
different space books or dinosaur books. So if you've got those and it's the same illustrator and they can see that one that they're
Mm-hmm.
used to, then they'll go for it. So yeah, there's a couple of authors in Australia that have done well, The Bad Guys, which I think's over here as well and doing
Mm-hmm.
well. So he planned out about 20 books in that series. I think he planned it to be a 20-book series when he
Wow.
started. I heard him talking, and yeah, and then he does Pig the Pug as well. I'm not sure if that's out here, but that's a picture book series, and that again, it just sort of goes on. And so he's really good. He gets these really cool characters, and then he can just drop them in these different situations, and they just react how they Pig the Pug reacts the same all the time. He's horrible, but and he always gets his kind of just desserts at the end. So yeah, so I think that's a really good way to do it. It's a lot of series. I think a good way to do it is either character centered
Uh-huh.
or concept. So the How to Catch was obviously more the concept,
Uh-huh.
and then you go, okay, we've got this formula. You got the leprechaun turns up, the kids are trying to catch him, he gets away. Okay, now we can do that with a unicorn or a dinosaur, a dragon. And so doing that or getting a really cool character like a Pig the Pug and going, all right, he's at Christmas. Okay, he's at this, he's at that, he's at that. And then putting them in all these situations. And they kind of start writing themselves after a little bit, I think. Like they kind of get in
Right.
that,
Just kind of on
especially
a roll. Yeah.
yeah, and you get to know the character so well that you almost know how they're going to react. So you're almost writing as them, which is really fun too.
Oh yeah, I would agree with you there because I feel like it's always funny to admit this, but even just picking a name for my character, because that was an essential part of the story, took such a long time.
Yeah,
It was almost as long as it took me to name my own children. It was
yeah,
like, I really need this to fit and be the right thing.
yeah,
And so, like you're saying, like when you go with a theme, where you're saying concept centered versus the character, I think that makes a lot of sense because you know that there's going to be traps and different things, but it's fun to see a different character. For example, my son just started losing teeth, so we started checking out
yeah,
all the Tooth Fairy books. So
yeah,
yeah, How to Catch a Tooth Fairy ended up in my. So I do book blogging too. I just love books,
Yeah.
I have an affinity for books, and I'm always doing something with books. So we gathered up, did a roundup of the tooth fairy books. We do dragon books, dinosaur books, whatever, how to, social and emotional learning, different themes there. And actually, while we were discovering some of those things, there was this cute, and I've got to try to remember the author's name, but it's a unicorn that goes through the different emotions. So all these different things happen that either put the unicorn in a sad mood, or there's a book where a really excited mood. And so my daughter loved those because it was the unicorn. It's like, great, we're going to introduce this kind of difficult concept of what it feels like to be jealous or to be left out, and then go from there with your favorite
with
character.
The unicorn.
Yeah. So like you're saying, I really see the value in that when you can make a character, and you're right, it almost would write itself, because if the kids know, okay, this is how Pete always acts, so this is going to happen, he's going to be rotten, he's going to make the wrong choice, let's just see what that looks like this time. But yeah, like it's just kind of like the kids start looking for it the next in the series. Absolutely. Which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what I like about that as well is then you can have that they know how he's going to react, which means you can then kind of flip it sometimes as well and surprise them where he doesn't react a certain that way you'd expect at the time. And then you can see where that goes as well. And obviously you've got to have a reason why he doesn't. But then if you can do that, then that gives them a bit of, oh, this is different as well. So yeah, there's an idea. I remember hearing this thing. It was about movies, but it's like we're really drawn to movies that are 85% familiar and 15% original. So if it's too familiar, if it's too familiar, it's boring. But if it's too original, it freaks us out. And so so we can have that. And I guess even with the dinosaur, like the Dinosaur Birthday, then we go into Dinosaur Christmas. It's that familiarity, but just a different event that it's going to be happening now. So yeah,
so many different things can happen, from a birthday party to Christmas, because every mom or parent plans a birthday party differently, right? And there's those things, and then you have different traditions at Christmas. So yeah, that is really fun.
Yeah, and I mean, even our Christmas is summer compared to yours is winter. So straight away, there's so many different things that we do. Like we're having barbecues in 100-degree temperature.
Right, so, the weather alone, actually, that's so funny because we were watching, my kids love Bluey. I mean, I don't know many kids that don't. And they were confused about why they were playing Santa Veranda, because they were playing that Santa was, instead of on the roof, that Santa was like right there on their porch, because the weather is completely different. And just kind of, this like tropical weather, like they were like, what? So it's kind of fun to explain that there's just these cool differences, because it's different parts of the world that my kids as of now have not left the US, so they're still young, but there will be a day when we start traveling more with them. Cool. So far we've only ventured like to California, done Disney, gone back east to visit my family like in Virginia, but nice. It's just really fun, because I think that's one of the beautiful things about books is being able to visit places without physically leaving your chair or your home.
Absolutely. And not just real places, like you can visit anywhere without leaving your home, which is so cool. And again, like you're saying with Bluey, it's that thing of them learning about the different climates and different seasons in different countries. But from Bluey, like it's something they're just going, this is really fun, but now we also know this stuff. So yeah, it's great. It's a great way to learn. It's how I learn best, is when I'm just having fun, let alone if I'm just sitting with someone kind of
having a good time and asking the questions. And that's true. And I think like you're saying, like the imagination piece is so important there too. But then it's cool that you liked mythical beasts when you were starting to write your How to Cat series, and then as that continues with your new book, I think that is always a really good approach, just because I love Harry Potter, and I'm looking at my Lego setup here, and like the hippogriffs and the unicorn and different things that are also coming up there. But then one year for Christmas, my husband or my mom bought me the mythical creatures like dictionary that's illustrated. And I was like, this is so cool. But I'm like geeking out about it, where other people are probably like, but I think, if that vibes with you, and then like you said, in your audience, now who your audience is or what your audience kind of expects, it's so fun to run with that and just to see where you could go and what you can invent,
Absolutely. And what's really cool as well is the next lot of kids that come up, like 3-year-olds just love unicorns and 3-year-olds love dinosaurs. Like it just kids don't change. Kids in 10 years will still love unicorns when they're growing up. So
Right, right. Because I was going to say, even as a teenager, like I think one of the first Beanie Babies I collected was the unicorn.
yeah,
So, like exactly. And even looking at like my family, my son's 6 and my nephew that's 2, they both love dinosaurs.
yeah,
Obviously, their love varies because my 2-year-old nephew still can't talk a lot, but my son is here rattling off dinosaur names, and then they do a dinosaur island here in Utah at
wow,
Thanksgiving Point, and
yeah.
he's your tour guide. Like you're walking through it,
Oh,
reading the signs, and he's just telling you, oh, I know it's this dino, they're a meat eater, they're an omnivore, they're this, and you're just like, but what's crazy is he learned that from books. He
it's
has learned that from
amazing.
being read to and from learning to read.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, he obviously loves it so much. And to hear these little kids and these huge words coming
I
out of
know.
them, and they just like say them so easy. It's like, that's amazing. There was one today. I'll say it right again. There was a dinosaur. It was his favorite, and I just kept pronouncing it wrong, not even deliberately, because I
Right. You couldn't
yeah,
hear
couldn't get it
the,
in my
yeah, yeah,
head.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was sort of it was like I kept saying Giganosaurus or something. He's like, no,
Oh, instead of
Giganosaurus.
Gigantosaurus.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a hard one.
yeah.
Disney had done a show with a little Gigantosaurus. And what's funny is we had all called it because in the show, the little dinos call it Giganto as a
Mm.
nickname.
And because
But
it's
then my
huge.
husband and I went and saw the Jurassic World movie, the more recent one, and
Mm.
they were calling it Giganto. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. So
Don't
it's so
ruin
funny
that.
because we're like, no, we have to get it right because our son's
Yeah.
gonna it's going to matter to him, and then it's just
Yes.
funny for all the other things that come after, how you're reading it, how you're hearing it, pronounced. So
Yeah.
I completely empathize with
Oh,
that, but that's so funny. You're like, sorry, buddy. I
no way.
promise.
I'll try. And in the end, I just say, can you tell me again? And he would just say it. And it was nice. He was kind of quite happy. Like he was
Yeah.
quite proud that he knew it and I didn't. He's like,
Oh yeah.
smart on this guy.
When the kid gets to say, I knew it and this adult did it, right? This
Yeah.
adult who writes about dinosaurs. But
I
yeah,
have no
it's so
idea.
funny. It means a lot to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's great to see that enthusiasm and that excitement over it as well is so cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then like that's what's nice is then like you've really hit the jackpot as far as your audience and what their interests are. And so you mentioned you'd been doing some art and like fun things with them too. What kinds of things have you been doing? Has your illustrator been with you too? Or just
No,
you?
no, just me. Yes, he's based in Australia as well.
Okay.
So just me flying over. But I have a series I did that I self-published actually of how to draw books for kids, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, so I've just been doing a
Wow.
couple of dinosaurs in that I had in the book. So I've just been drawing. We've been doing Brontosaurus and T Rex, and yeah, getting the kid, and it's great. Like even so, I generally wrote those for we say primary school, so I guess
Yeah.
elementary school,
Yeah.
that age. And but some of these kids today were like 3 and 4, and they're having a go and getting
Yeah.
basic sort of shapes out there, which is really nice. And the parents draw with them, and yeah, so doing those, so just drawing up on a big whiteboard, and then they copy it down, and yeah,
Oh,
it's really fun.
fun.
Yeah, I taught myself drawing while I was doing the books on how to teach the kids drawing. I sort of
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. Because like so I can really appreciate that. I have no artistic ability whatsoever. Like we're talking stick figures is as good as
yeah,
it gets.
yeah,
I will take the time to try and draw with my kids because they love to draw. But for example, they would be the ones, eagerly following along with you, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, let me
yeah.
give it a go. Because my creativity source is with words. That's just 100% like
Mm,
where I come
right.
from, but I can visualize so much. And that's why that's so tricky when you want to write a children's book because you know what you want it to look like. And my illustrator did an excellent job, but
Yeah,
I was picky. I mean, I was like, she needs to look like this. She needs to have this aspect. She needs to be this age. So she needs, anyway, what we did when I went to the libraries, we printed out some of our favorite pictures from the story and had the kids do like an art contest to color,
oh,
the
cool.
pictures different. But yeah, it was really
Yeah,
fun.
great.
And I ended up like keeping my son because I mean he's so funny because he actually has really taken to learning to draw dinosaurs, which is impressive because again,
Okay.
not my thing. But I was just proud of him because even though this was like a year ago, he wanted to
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, sign it for me and show me this, work that he did from my book.
Yeah,
And
Pete, that's
actually, this was
awesome.
an illustration we ended up chopping because uh, my publisher felt like it was going to confuse kids that there were three versions of Sophie sliding down the stairs. So it was kind of cool because they're like, hey, when you do this art contest, you could be my next illustrator because it ended up only being this instead of
Okay.
that big
Yep.
long page,
Yep. That's
So it
great.
was
Yeah.
so fun. And I still even have extra copies of the coloring pages because it was just like fun. Like be an artist for a day, be the illustrator.
Yeah, I love it. I
Or
love
come
it.
up with it, right? Yeah, like telling the kids if you want to draw, draw. And then I'm lucky, my illustrator lives here in Utah. And so she
Okay.
came to one of the story times and she taught the kids to watercolor bookmarks. Oh, it was so beautiful,
That's
so
amazing.
creative. They were just doing all the themes, whatever they wanted. Because Sophie, and then we had a pajama party. Because Sophie's
Yep.
goal is to do everything in pajamas. Like she will not change. And I
Yep.
thought I was so smart when I wrote this book until I got a sassy 4-year-old who now says, Mom, I don't want to get dressed. Sophie
Oh
didn't have
no.
to. She
Oh
did
no.
all the things in her pajamas. And I'm like, what is that? Like, what?
Backfire. Backfire. I had one
It
like that where,
backfired
yeah.
major.
I had one where I had a book called The Share Not, and it was about this share not, this monster who didn't share. I was saying, and by the end of it, he learns to share. And so similar thing, I'm like, oh, this nice lesson to learn about sharing. And my friend's gone to me, that book's the worst. I'm like, why? And her son, who was like 4 at the time or 5 at the time, he's like, look at me, I'm the share not. And he didn't share anything because he wanted to be back when he wasn't sharing. I'm like, oh, this is a
Oh
total backfire.
no. You're like, that wasn't the moral of the story. That's not the
Exactly.
take home message.
Oh man, yeah, it wasn't at
It's
all.
good.
But
It's too good. That's the thing, is like you try your story out on the kids. It takes too well.
yeah,
And then you're like, oh, dang it.
exactly, exactly. But on the drawing, before I forget as well, on the drawing, especially for kids like drawing, if you go to my website, even if you just Google Adam Wallace and go to the website,
Okay.
there's a little free books tab, and in that you can actually download 2 of my how to draw books for free, just as
Oh,
PDFs. So,
cool.
yeah, so they can learn how to draw those, and they've all got like a little rhyming story. So like the dog, you start by drawing a UFO, then you do the headlight, the doors open, the aliens appear, and as you draw that, it becomes the dog's face. So there's
Oh my
there's
gosh.
a T-Rex in that he can learn to draw as well in one of those books too. So, and there's monkeys and
Okay.
dragons and all sorts of stuff in there. So
That is so fun. I had actually written down to ask you your website. So it's adamwallacebooks.com, right? Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah. So yeah, Adam
Because
Dash
I
Wallace.
knew, yeah, it will be many kids that want to look this up, including my own. So that's cool that
Cool.
you have these how-to drawing books. And then, oh yeah, my son will have a blast with this when I get off
Awesome.
and tell him.
Yeah,
He'll
cool.
be
And it's great seeing the
excited.
kids draw it because even going out to a school, or like even today, they'll be following all the same steps, but all their pictures will come out totally different. Like there'll be different shapes and different
Oh
proportions.
yeah.
So they look awesome. So no, well, I'd love to see some. If he does draw some, you have to send some
Yeah.
through to me.
Yeah, I'll have to email him your way because
Yeah.
it's so fun because even 2 years ago, yeah, even less than 2 years ago. So I guess he did kindergarten this year, and the year before that was in preschool. But
Yep.
he really didn't like art, and it was hard for me because I don't either. I appreciate it, but I hate doing it. I just never felt talented enough. Well, it was cool because as he went to preschool, he started to get more confident. He did more projects. He, realized that it wasn't just crayons; it was
Yeah.
cutting and gluing and shapes. And one day I walk outside and he's on our basketball court drawing dinosaurs with sidewalk chalk, which is
Oh
so
wow.
hard. Like that's a hard medium.
Yeah, really hard.
And he is like getting the claws. And I'm like, who are you?
Hang
I
on a
was just
minute.
like, I was just so excited because it like finally clicked for him that, but like that's the thing. If we don't give them opportunities to be creative and even push them when it's uncomfortable, because
Absolutely.
if I had just said, okay, you're right, it's hard, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to get it, then he may not have kept pushing.
Good.
But then he's out here with sidewalk chalk, like creating a dino habitat, and you're like, wow, like mad respect. Like I really love that.
Yeah, that's
So
really
I'm
cool.
sure he would have a blast with this because he loves dogs. He really wants to
Great.
convince us we need a dog. And I would actually love that in a heartbeat. My husband's allergic to almost
Oh no.
all furry, feathery, everything. So it would have to be a dog that could be outside. We'd have to keep him in the heated garage, in winter, which it can be brutal sometimes in Utah. But we babysat a friend's puppy this last week, and it was a lot of work. And my son saw that, but then he was like, he came home and drew a picture and hung it up above his bed and said, I'm still working towards my puppy. And I was like, hey.
It's like his vision board.
Yeah, kind of like making a vision. Yes, actually he does. He has kind of a disorganized vision board. We have things from Spider-Man to dinosaurs to cars, the Disney, like he loved cars as like a 3-year-old. Then you've got, I don't know, fossils, because he's, like I said, it's dinos and fossils. And he has decided that if he still wants to be an astronaut, he will dig for fossils in space. So we are just no limits, right? Like it's just,
wow.
His imagination is awesome. But that's and see, that's what makes it fun for me, because as I write, I just like you said, testing it out on the kids. But then I think, how are they gonna view this? And now that he's learning to read, he can read my story. Like he's read my story to his younger sister, and it's like, wow, that's just so neat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did that feel hearing that? That's awesome.
Yeah, it kind of gave me goosebumps. It was like, oh wow, because it's my voice coming through, but I've always read it to them, and now that he can read it, it's like any time too that I've heard my mom or my sisters read it, but it meant even more hearing my son having learned to read. It was like, oh, this is cool,
Yeah, what a moment. That's so lovely.
Yeah, there are some really cool things, as you know, about being an author. And then it's a lot of work, especially where you're at, where you're just cranking out tons. But like you said, it's interesting because there are spells or times in life when we have a little more time to write maybe than others. And when your mom had broken her back and was injured, that was like what you did while you were staying with her.
Yeah, she really helped me out.
Right, you're like, thank you, but please don't do that again.
That's right. Once is enough.
Yeah, thank you for presenting that opportunity, but once was plenty, right? Yeah.
And after 3 months living together, we were pretty much done as well. So
there comes a time, especially as a grown-up, where you're like, oh yeah, that's why I moved out. I love you so much, but there are so many differences. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, here's my paleontologist.
Hi, he's appeared.
Hi. This is the guy that wrote the dino book.
Hey, hello.
You say hello.
Jackson, right?
Can you tell him your favorite dinosaur? What's your favorite one? He's not in the book, right? That's okay.
Yeah, we didn't get him on.
Velociraptor and Girafinator were close. What's your favorite?
There's a few in there that I hadn't even heard of in the book. There's a couple in there I'd never heard of.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because I was like, we've been doing this. Just yesterday, he dug a fossil, and it was Compsognathus. I mean, that's cool. Yeah. We just always. Hey, give me just a couple minutes, and I'll come out. Okay. Okay. Waiting is not easy. Elephant and Piggy. I think it's in the red basket. He's ready to read.
Yeah, waiting is not easy. Right.
Oh, that is such a good book. It's golden, because we love the Elephant and Piggy books, but he's still in those easy reader type books. And he really, I want to videotape him and make a YouTube channel or a podcast. He reads it so expressively. It's just darling. Sometimes for fun, I'll read Piggy's part so he can just be Gerald. But oh my goodness, it's so fun. I love that literacy has blessed and continues to just grow in our family and in my circle, because it's always meant a lot to me. As a teacher, so I taught school for 5 years. I taught the 9 and 10-year-olds, which as I write, that's generally who I find myself writing for, is those kids that I taught. But then having children on my own, it's just cool, because there's just so many different opportunities and circumstances that come across my path that it just keeps kind of blooming and growing. And I just I will tell you, I love what you're doing. It's awesome, and it's just so fun, this new book. And like I said, we've had a good time with it.
Oh, thank you.
It's such an honor to talk to you. I should just ask you, is there anything else you would like to share today? Just anything on your mind, as you've been traveling or as you've been working on things?
I guess, look, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast as well. It's awesome. And also, just to say, like obviously your kids love the books and everything, but your enthusiasm for it as well, and your support for it and your love of it, I think really comes across. And sometimes I heard a thing, a friend said that, well, we're talking about teenagers, but I think it works with all kids. If you tell them what to do, they won't do what you tell them to do, but they'll do what they see you do. And
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, so them seeing how much you love books, I think that's gonna doesn't always rub off, but I think that's a really good thing to rub off. So yes, I think that's awesome. Yeah, no, another thing, yeah, people are welcome to download those books and print them out or do them off the computer, whatever they want to do with them. And but also I think, yeah, just that I guess I mean, talking about vision boards, like I do, I have vision boards, I set goals and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And never, like, I used to be an engineer before I did this.
Really?
Yeah. And
Oh,
so
fascinating. Okay.
yeah. And I got my teaching degree. I ended up not teaching because I started doing the books, but realizing this was what I just love doing and doing it every day and getting as good as I could at it, being able to do stuff like this and the different thing. I've been to Slovenia for my writing, and I've come to America now a couple of times for my writing, and doing like all the stuff I've done, I never would have got to do probably doing engineering. So
Right.
I've so many things open up that are just been mind blowing. So yeah, the places it's got me has been incredible. So yeah, I think just doing what you love and
Do what
doing,
you
and
love.
yeah, it's pretty simple, I think. And it doesn't always mean I've done stuff I love, like playing sport, but I never got to play professional sport.
Right.
But
Right.
I loved every moment of trying to get there. And so yeah, I think we don't know how long we got. You've got to have fun while you're here, and so just do stuff you like doing.
That's really good advice, because and it's always fascinating to me, the people I cross paths with here on the show. Like, so many of you did not necessarily start out to be writers.
Yes.
I've loved writing since I was like in second grade. I write journals. I document my life. I'm like a crazy, insane writer.
Yeah.
but I taught first, right? So like, and that's not too crazy, but like I love seeing like engineers and astrophysicists, and like I had an accountant. She wrote a baby board book. I had her on the show a month ago, and I'm like, you guys are amazing, because like you said, you ended up going with what you love doing, even if that wasn't your profession and what you had a background in. You like decided, hey, this is what I'm kind of inclined towards, and I'm going to go with it. And it's brought you so much joy, right? It's just like so cool and so fulfilling.
Absolutely. And it took me a while to quit engineering. Like I went for about 5 years. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I was doing the self-publishing. So I built up a little bit of a side income in it, which meant when I quit, it dropped me down to about a third of my income, but I knew I could sort of manage. And I was just determined at that stage to do it. But interesting you say I love writing, because I loved writing at school until my final year, and I hated writing in my final year.
Oh no.
Which was kind of why I did engineering. I just went full math science and didn't write for 10 years after I left school.
Wow.
So I didn't
That's
write
a long,
word.
yeah, a long time.
Yeah. So when I started again, when I was like 27, 28, it just flowed out of me. Like it was obvious I'd been holding back.
Took off.
Yeah. So
that
yes,
is so interesting. Yeah, because I feel like, and that's the thing too, though, sometimes as with anything, but even with writing, it kind of ebbs and flows. There might be seasons where you're just full of words and need to write. I mean, I have like several manuscripts. I need to now just get them edited and push it to the next step. Stop having perfectionism issues about it. I've tested it out on the nieces and nephews and the kids. It's ready to go. But even just like, there are times where like I'm driven to write, and then there's other seasons where I'm like, I'm okay doing a cross stitch tonight or reading, because reading helps develop my writing or whatever. I don't have to write every single day to still love writing,
That's right. And even doing the reading and doing the cross stitch and doing other creative things or other activities you like, that's going to help your writing anyway, because it's going to keep
long term
flow going. Yeah, absolutely. And with the perfectionism, there is this one quote that I heard one time which really helped me with that and overworking it, which was I have no idea who said it. Was in the Artist's Way. And it was a good painting is never finished. It just stops in interesting places. And I thought that was really cool.
I really like that. Yeah. That's
really,
and that's probably true, because I can imagine as an artist continues to look at and revisit their work, there are probably tons of tweaks and things that they see that they could keep adding. Yeah. And so that makes sense, and that even makes sense when we were editing my book, which I laugh about this still. A children's book edit takes so much more time and actual edits than like an adult book. Like when I've talked to people that write novels for adults,
Yeah.
I would say at least 40 edits came for this children's book. At least, I didn't even count
Yeah.
around that. And it was just like, do we need that extra word? Do we add speech bubbles, for some of the text? Do we do this? Do we do that? And I had started, and I'm a wordy birdie, so I had started with way too many words.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you want a chapter book or do you want a children's picture book? And I was like, no, this is meant to be a children's picture book. It needs illustration. And then as my artist came in and did her work, I was like, you're completing it perfectly. Like, I didn't need the words to show that she spilled on her favorite pajamas because
cut out.
yes.
Yeah.
So then it was like so easy to go in and tailor it down. But when we first started out, I had, I don't know, 1,800 plus words.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And
You
got
obviously
it
got
down to
excited
like,
and loved it.
I think it's down to like 750 where it's
Yeah.
at now. So lots and lots of edits, but
Yeah.
it's okay because like you said, like, but then even then I was like going back as it was ready to go to print, like, ooh, what about that one page? What about that one layout? And then you're like, no, you just gotta do it. Like,
Let
it's
it go.
okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Very
And
true.
you get it to a point where even if you think there's more, that you're still really happy with it. And yeah, sometimes it's really hard because there's always stuff you can do, but you never really know what's going to be the point that's going to be the right point.
Yeah, of
So
cutting
it's
it
really,
off.
yeah, in the
And
end,
once it's past, like, it's been professionally edited, and then your publishing company has looked at it and gone over it. Like, yeah, there kind of comes a point where I remember doing at least 3 edit meetings, and finally, like, just I'm starting to dread this. Can we just move
yes,
it along?
that's a good time to know. I reckon that's a good point. Like when you're starting to dread it, that's probably a sign that you've done enough on
Like,
it.
I love this. I'm oversatiated now with it. Let's get it out into the world. That's why I wrote it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I really appreciate you taking time to come on here today.
Pleasure.
I will include your website and all these fun anecdotes in the
cool.
show notes. And then I'll email all that to you guys, and I'll let you know when it's coming out, so you know when to listen for it.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Yeah, well, have fun with the rest of your book tour and enjoy Denver. Colorado's really pretty, so have a good
really
time.
nice.
It
Looking out the
is
window now. It's really cool.
really pretty. Okay, well, take care. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.